Welcome back. One of the weaknesses that I've been neglecting over the past few weeks is evaluating the position in the middle of a game and from there determining my best move. I focused a lot on finding forced checkmates or end game tactics, but another of the weaknesses, in fact, one of the first ones that I listed was this. And for example, in this game, we're on move 21, and I'm playing against a player rated about 100 points higher than me, and I'm dead even after 21 moves, according to Stockfish. And I thought we probably were at this point. And it says the only way here that I can keep that dead even position is knight to b3 or queen to d3. And I wasn't really seeing that because I was worried about this down here. The queen and the knight are both pointing here. So, for example, if it was black's turn, it's not. It's my turn. But if it were black's turn, there's a check. I have to move, which moves me directly into the line of the queen. I don't have to move, obviously. If they check with the knight, I can take with my rook. But I assume most people would move over, and then that puts me in line with the queen so that the knight can go anywhere, and I'm in check again. For example, the knight could go here, and then I would be in double check, right? So then I would have to go back to the corner, and then the queen gets to do one of those really awesome things where they check in here, which forces the rook to capture, and then there's that cool smothered, knights don't move that way, cool smothered mate right here. Again, that's if it's black's turn, and if I move instead of take, then the knight goes to h3. I'm in double check. I have to go back. The queen comes in here. I have to take, and then the knight checks me on f2, checkmates me because it's a smothered mate. So that's what I was looking at. That's what I was worried about. And I thought I had to generate some counterplay, had to do something against that. And what I came up with was the fact that my rook was pointed at the f7 pawn, and I put my queen here. That turns out to be a blunder. And looking back, I now can see it because I've seen the evaluation. If I move the knight to b3, as the thing is suggesting, not only does that attack the opponent's queen, but it gets the knight out of the way of my queen seeing this square. And so that makes it obvious that that's a better move. I still don't understand queen d3. I've looked at that because that doesn't prevent this at all. In fact, that makes this knight check a fork of my queen and basically forces me to take with the rook. And then they take the rook for a knight. I just saw it. If they do that, yes, I've lost a rook for a knight, but my other rook is still guarding the back rank, and from there I would be attacking this rook. Okay, I understand that now, and I understand this now. But I did not know that this was a huge blunder. I thought I was already behind at that point. That's the problem with the position right before that move, is that I thought I was already behind. I thought that they had come up with some really awesome idea here, and there wasn't much I can do about it, that I was about to lose a major piece for a minor piece. And so that's why I moved here, thinking of counterplay, pointing at this pawn and possibly threatening checkmate. And of course, I didn't know that was a mistake. So I didn't know that, that I could have stayed even at that point. I did know, I thought I was behind. And so when they did this, which is apparently what they had been planning, I knew that this was bad because of the whole smothered mate idea. So I captured with my rook. They took with their queen. And then I realized I still have the idea here because my knight is guarding that spot. The only problem is nothing's guarding the knight. But I did that, which turns out to be the best move. I think the queen could take the knight, according to Stockfish, but my idea was that if the queen did take the knight, then I have this. And I have my rook and queen lined up on f7. The king has to move out of the way. And then I would win the rook with check. And then the king would have to come up here. And I would be doing okay at that point. I would have a queen and a rook against a queen and a rook. So, but after I did that, my opponent did find the best move, the only move that maintains their advantage in this position, which is that. Because not only does that get their queen out of danger from this rook, but it guards that square. And I saw that, so I wasn't sure what to do. It turns out I did make one of the best moves. My idea was to get the knight here and then the knight there. And again, I'm thinking of counterplay because I know I'm behind. I didn't know when I went behind. I thought I was already behind before the opening position of this video. But regardless, I stayed behind for some time. Rook comes after my queen. I made one of the better moves there, one of the three top moves. And again, my idea was to maintain this diagonal and get my knight over here. My opponent made the best move in this position. And, sorry, I'm trying to figure out why I did what I did here. And why Stockfish isn't saying this is one of my better moves. I thought that was my plan. Why didn't I go there? Anyway, I'm not sure why I didn't go there, but I went here. Which turns out to be not a good move. So I'm behind. The queen's penetrating here. That turned out to not be their best move, but they have this threat now, since I've moved my rook off the back rank. So now I have to do something. I either have to move one of my pieces to the back rank or make a Luft, I think is what it's called. And so I did that. Surprisingly, I made the best move there. They did not take this free pawn, which probably would have been a good move because it would have threatened the rook and forced me to move it. But instead, they checked down here, which forces me to move up, and we went on. Again, I'm staying behind this whole time, and again, I'm pretty sure I am behind because I have a knight for a rook. I just know that I do have my knight here now, and now I have three pieces pointing at the f7 pawn. My opponent is trying to protect it as well as they can. I take the free pawn, which turns out to not be a great move. That turned out to be their best move. Oh, wow, and here it says my best move is just to go there. I didn't consider that just because there's two defenders on that pawn. And I only have two attackers. I didn't see that was my best move, really, because they would have taken back, right? Okay, now I could have checked and won the rook. Nice tactic. Okay, see, I was just thinking that if I took the rook back, the king would take and I'd be done. But I can check here. Nice, that's a fork. And I win the rook either way, whether the king moves out of check or whether they block with this rook or block with this rook. If they block with this one, then I have an immediate check with capturing it, and if they block with this rook, I capture this rook with check. I still would have been way behind, according to the evaluation, and I assume that's because my king is in a significant amount of danger here. But anyway, I did not see rook captures here. I did not see that tactic to draw this rook off the back rank to do that check. I did not see any of those top moves, like queen to c5. I played that, thinking since they only have two defenders on that, I'm adding a third attacker to it. That's what I played. And here, all they have to do is this. And they have a huge advantage. Nearly mate. Let Stockfish run a couple more minutes here and it'll find a mate. Because that's pointing at this. And the queen's right there. I'm going to, they're going to come here. They're going to come down. And, but they blundered. Right here my opponent blundered and did that. Now again, I didn't know that was a blunder. I thought, wait, I'm down in exchange. They're trying to simplify. If I capture and they capture back, then we're down to rook and queen versus queen and rook versus queen and knight, right? These will be the remaining pieces on the board. So I didn't know that was a blunder. But I also didn't know what else to do, so I took it. And they did as I expected and took back. And man, how I wish somebody could have just whispered in my ear, Stockfish says you're at 0. That would have been so helpful to me at this point. It says c4 is my best move here. I'm not sure why. Queen to e7. Also not sure why that's the best move. What I saw was the free pawn. So I took that, and that turns out to still be relatively drawn. My opponent made one of their better moves here, but I'm seeing that they're attacking the base of this minor pawn chain. And so I moved to protect it. Now it actually says my best move here is to put the queen back where it just came from and let them have that pawn. Just let them have it. And it says they wouldn't take it. Another possibility for me is queen to d5, offering a queen trade. And if I did that, then they would take this pawn, but it would still be equality. And I had no idea. I did the best I could, which I went here, because I thought, well, from here, that queen protects all 4 of those. Not too bad, right? And the knight's protecting this pawn. So that's what I did, but look at this. And from there, I didn't recover. So I need to know why that this is equality and that's not. And it's frustrating. That's not equality. That's a blunder. But this is equality. Whether they check me here, which is one of their options, or whether they take the pawn, or whether they just go here, which I don't understand that move at all. But those moves all maintain equality. What happens if they take my queen? Now I have a huge advantage. Wow. Is it because I have 4 passed pawns? And they technically only have 1 passed pawn? That's got to be it, right? I have 4 connected passed pawns. And would they would surely see this, because that wins this pawn, right? Because I have to move the knight. And it says they wouldn't take this pawn. They would play king to f8. I guess to get out of this check. Or rook to a8 in this position. Why wouldn't they just take this pawn? Oh, I just see why they wouldn't take that pawn. Okay. Because I would have the fork. And I would win the rook. Okay, so they wouldn't take the pawn. What if they played their best move? Then what would I do? c4 to protect that pawn, now that they've gotten out of the fork. Okay, I get that. Now it says rook to c8, but why not b8? I don't understand why b8's not better, because I can't protect this pawn. This pawn I can't protect, but this one I can, right? It says they would go to rook to c8, and I would protect it this way. Knight e3 actually loses a bunch of my advantage. I would have to do this. Then wouldn't they do c8? No. I mean b8. Why wouldn't they come after the base of the pawn chain? What would be so bad about that? I would just give up the pawn chain. Wow. And now their best move is just to race here? No. To bring the king. Well, that's one of their better moves. But is my advantage just because they can't stop these? D6. King to E8. C6. Aren't they going to put the rook behind it now, surely? But now I can move that forward to protect it, right? No, but I wouldn't. I would play here to protect it. Not sure about that. I don't know that I would see that, just because I'm going to have to move this pawn at some point, and then it wouldn't be protecting the knight anymore. But maybe it's too late. I'm just following out a hypothetical possibility if I had played queen to d5 back in this position. If I had played here and they had traded with me, and they might have, because they thought a rook beats a knight. They might have taken, but they also might have just taken the pawn and realized, hey, instead of even trade, why not just go up? And then I would have known to move this, leaving the c pawn unguarded. I would have just moved that, and they could have taken the c pawn, and it still would have been a drawn. I know this video's already gotten longer than my normal ones, but this is the kind of weakness that's going to be harder for me to understand, is how way back there we were equal and I didn't realize it. I thought I had been down the whole time. Again, I didn't think that rook trade was a blunder on their part. I knew it damaged their pawn structure and left this h-pawn unguarded, or unguardable really. But I thought I was still behind here. And I thought the only one option that I had was to try to move here to protect all those pieces. I just realized from there the queen also protects this pawn. But yeah, my queen on b4 protects all of those. Because the last move of my opponent here, it's hitting the knight and this pawn. And this move protects all of them. But that's horrible. And they did play their best move here, which adds another attacker to the knight, and so I can't defend it. I can move it, which I did, which turns out to not be one of my best moves. I moved it there, and that makes my situation so much worse because, well, they check, and I have pretty precarious position because if I move out of check, I think they have a mate here. As it turns out, they have a mate anyway. But I blocked with my knight. And I figured I was in a pretty bad situation. They have a mate in 4 now if they play h4, and they did. But the reason I moved that pawn was to get my queen down here to guard the knight, which I did. And they took, which turned out to not be their best move, and I took back, and they traded queens with me. And nothing I can do. And here they go after one of my pawns. And we basically just, I played a few more moves and then I resigned. I resigned right there. So, but yeah, it comes back to the point where my opponent blundered and I didn't realize it, which was, wasn't there. It was me back here. I blundered here to lose the equality at this point. But now I see that moving the knight helps my queen guard this spot. But anyway, I blundered and then was behind this whole section until we got to there. And when my opponent blundered black equality. But I didn't realize that was a blunder. But at least I did the right thing. And I had equality until here, because I was trying to protect both pieces. I'm going to have to look at this again and again, but I am working on this. If any of you guys have something that can help me see why, I mean, I know that this was bad because it ended up in me losing, but like some sort of positional idea to, how is it worse to protect all the pieces than to let one of them go? Anyway, thanks for watching. This is something that I'm working on. Like I said, I might have played differently had I known during the game when I was ahead and when I was equal, or when I was behind and when I was equal. But regardless, I didn't lose a lot of rating points because the opponent was rated more than 100 points higher than me. But thank you for sticking with me and all the support and advice in the comments. Thank you.